Tintin and the Cigars of the Pharaohs. So apologies in advance for a couple of things. One thing, they're doing construction in the apartment right above me, drilling, banging. I'm not sure how much of that noise the camera is going to pick up, but apologies in advance. There was just they do construction every morning, and mornings are the only free time I have to film at the moment. So had to be done. Secondly, you might be able to hear my voice is a little bit froggy. Again, apologies. That being said, try and get through this. So this is the third Tintin book after The Adventures of Tintin in the Land of the Soviets and Tintin in America. It's actually, if we go to the Wikipedia list, the fourth book in the series, but Tintin in the Congo is no longer being published. So yeah, this was originally serialized in newspapers between 1932 and 1934, and then collected into a comic book later. Colorizations, the colors I believe were all added later. Actually, there's been a number of changes over the years to this book. You can go to Wikipedia to talk about the things that got changed, names that got changed, things that got cut out, etc. As appears to be common with all these Tintin books. They were constantly evolving as for various reasons during the life of the author. So this is book number 3 or 4. The first two books I've already reviewed and gave them largely negative reviews. They were pretty awful. Second one was a little bit better than the first one. And this one is a little bit better yet. And again, one of the reasons I'm sticking with this series is everything I've read tells me that the books do get better as they go on. This book is the first book that really has a recognizable plot. It's a mystery. So Tintin and Snowy are on the ship. There's this crazy old professor who has some sort of ancient papyrus scroll, but is also clearly out of his mind, right? What a strange fellow. Bump. Oh, I beg your pardon, Captain. So what is going on with him? And then we see that some mysterious hand is writing a message. Watch out. He's met a young journalist who could be a nuisance. I want him disposed of before he gets ashore. And then there are these two detectives who are following Tintin, and it's all a little bit of a mystery what's happening. So it's set up brilliantly. According to Wikipedia, the author was influenced by the fact that mystery novels were very much in vogue in the 1930s. This was the heyday of Agatha Christie and others. Now, it goes off the rails almost immediately. So Tintin and Snowy get drugged and put into coffins, and then they get smuggled on a boat, but then the coffins get dumped off the boat. But then there's a message: 3 coffins shipped by mistake. They contain prisoners, guard strictly. But it's too late. They've already dumped the coffins off the edge of the boat. Now, how does that happen? I mean, you go through all the trouble to drug Tintin and Snowy and the professor, put them in the coffins, and then immediately ship them off with the smuggled goods by mistake. And it's, from this point on, really, nothing makes any sense. It's just random stuff happening as throughout the other books. But, I don't know, a little bit more coherent of a plot, maybe, or an overarching plot. So still plenty of faults, but these books are definitely getting better. So, yeah, as you can tell already, this is an Egyptian mummy story. Well, kind of. There's no mummy, but it's a pyramid treasure story. So, reminds me of the mummy movies that came out during the 1930s. You know, the Boris Karloff ones. And yeah, Wikipedia says during this whole period there was a fascination with this because of the 1922 discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. And apparently, the mummy's curse thing, according to Wikipedia, was a tabloid story which was reported at the time, which of course made its way into a number of pulp media. Um, Although, about halfway through the book, about halfway through exactly, Tintin flies up in an airplane, uh, goes up, runs out of fuel, and then comes down in the jungles of India. Now the way it plays out on the page makes it look quite random, but I guess if you wanted to be charitable, you could assume that he's up in the air for much longer than is displayed on the page. You know, maybe some scenes got cut out. So then he ends up in India, and the rest of the book plays out with the same, still searching for the same mysterious gang, but now we are in India and we're getting on to all the Indian stereotypes. So, I don't want to talk too much about all the stuff that would be politically incorrect by today's standards because it's too easy. You know, it's a comic book from the 1930s, but yeah, they're definitely dealing with stereotypes from both India and Egypt in their respective sections. And I mean, if I don't know, if we wanted to get into it, you know, some of these illustrations have not aged well. But yeah, I don't want to get distracted too much by that stuff. I mean, it's definitely there if you want to criticize it, but it would be a bit of a one-note criticism. So, yeah, what else to talk about? This series has introduced the Thompson and Thompson twins. According to Wikipedia, they have a different name in the original French, but in English, Thompson and Thompson. One spells his name with a P, one does not. And they're bumbling policemen who throughout most of the series are trying to catch Tintin, but at the very end of the series, finally recognize that they've been misled and Tintin is not actually the criminal they think he is. So then they're trying to help him. And I believe these will go on to become reoccurring characters throughout the Tintin series. The overarching plot, I mean, to the extent there is a plot, not just kind of random things happening, is they're trying to catch a drug gang who is smuggling opium out. No, I didn't comment on it in the previous reviews, but drug smuggling and drug gangs have actually popped up in at least one of the previous Tintin books. Maybe both of them. I don't remember. It surprised me a little bit because, you know, when I think about the war on drugs, I think something that got going in the 60s, 70s, especially the 80s. I don't really associate it with the 1930s. But yeah, just goes to show what I know, huh? I guess catching drug smuggling rings was plots of comic books all the way back in the 1930s. And then the series ends with a couple of plot points unresolved. So there's a couple people who have been turned mad by this crazy dart, who are still not cured at the end. I'm not sure if that plot thread will be picked up. But then, yeah, the evil gang is not entirely captured at the end. So, I think even without the benefit of Wikipedia, you'd have a fair guess that this is going to be continued in the next book. But sure enough, Wikipedia confirms that this is going to be continued in the next book. Yeah, I guess binding these up into books is in retrospect. Originally, these were newspaper comic strips, so maybe that's where this continuing story is coming from, as well as a lot of the randomness of the plot. You know, the need to give a punchline or a climax to each individual strip to keep the reader reading. So, yeah, I think I know the last couple times I rambled on for 20 or 30 minutes when I talked about these Tintin comics, but I think I'm just going to leave it here. It's well, sorry. One last observation. It's better than the other two. There's a bit of an overarching plot. It does disintegrate into a lot of random adventures, but I don't know. I found it worked better. It's I mean, if you compare it to the first book, Tintin in the Land of the Soviets, it is miles better. So, you know, there's a fine line here. You want a lot of action in a book like this to keep your attention. On the other hand, you don't want it to be constantly one random thing after another, because then there's just no story to get involved in. Tintin in the Land of the Soviets was definitely just one random thing after another. Here, it's definitely leaning towards more the side of some semblance of plot, with enough action and random stuff to help keep your interest. Hopefully, future books will get that balance even better. It's a little bit ridiculous that he winds up in India just randomly. Wikipedia said that the connection between Egypt and India, where they were both British colonial possessions at the time. Actually, is that true? That's not true, is it? Egypt got its independence shortly after World War One, didn't it? Sorry, I've not always done my homework before shooting these reviews. I guess associated with the British at any rate. Anyway, finish off here, and then I'll on to the next Tintin book.